Hi, this is Sarah Brown with 1851 Franchise, and today I have with me Jason Murray, who is a partner at K&L Gates. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, Jason.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Glad to participate.
Awesome. So let's just dive right in. Can you start by telling me how you ended up specializing in franchise law and what specifically drew you to the field?
Okay. Well, it's an interesting story in the sense that it goes all the way back to my childhood. Um, I'm one of those strange guys who always knew that he wanted to be an attorney. And as a kid growing up, I said that that was going to be my focus and my passion. And I had a family that was involved in a particular restaurant style business. And they always talking about me coming in and being a part of the family business. And I knew that I wanted to go off to law school and all the rest of that stuff. And I told them, I said, I believe we had a great concept at the time. And I told them this is a concept that should, spread like all these other businesses that we were seeing, all these other franchises, from the McDonald's of the world to the Long John Silver's and all the rest of the stuff. And I told them that this business should be franchised. And I said, I tell you what, when I go to law school, I'm going to learn all about franchising and I'll come back and I'll be the family attorney and I'll help us franchise this business concept. And so that was the deal, that I didn't have to do all the heavy labor that they were asking me to do, with the idea that I was going to literally come back, bring that knowledge, like bring that fire back from the mount and show them about franchising. So I had that idea in mind when I ultimately got to law school. And, I got a great law professor, and Byron Fox, one of the pioneers of franchising and franchise law, had him as a professor in law school teaching me all about franchising. And between his enthusiasm and his ideas and my prior passion, it just married perfectly. And I was off to be a franchise lawyer. So it worked out really nicely.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, cool. So kind of switching gears here. What do you think is the biggest legal hurdle facing the franchising industry in 2021 and 2022?
Well, the biggest legal hurdle right now, um, obviously, is wrestling with COVID-19, right? Everything that's on people's minds these days is COVID, COVID, COVID. And there's a tightrope that both the franchisor and the franchisee are walking right now. They're trying to figure out, how do I respond, and is it, how much of it is my business, if you will. All right, the franchisor has the problem of thinking, if I respond too heavily, provide too much guidance, help too much, get too involved in the day-to-day operations as it relates to managing COVID and COVID outbreaks and all the rest of that stuff, am I perhaps creating liability for myself in terms of vicarious liability and exposing myself to being hit and tagged? So they said, I want to support my franchisees, but I can't get too involved and I can't dictate and mandate certain procedures. Otherwise, I put myself on the line. You have franchisees who are saying, franchisor, I need your help. Support me, help me, and help me. And the franchisor is saying, I don't know what I want to do. And franchisees are also worried about how much stuff, do I just simply follow CDC guidelines, or do I have to do more than that? How much, what's the liability issue here from a franchisee perspective as it relates to individuals, workers, employees? Do I deal with, mask mandates for my staff? What are the protocols, mask mandates for customers coming in, all that sort of stuff. So COVID right now is dominating the thought as it is dominating the news, and people trying to figure out, what should I be doing in this COVID-19 environment?
Yeah, totally understandable. Okay. So what is the most common mistake you see franchise brands making from a legal perspective?
Well, in terms of franchise brands, from a legal perspective, sometimes their mistake, right, is becoming too involved, too heavy-handed. Franchisors get to a place where, yes, it's your brand. Yes, you have to do the things to protect your brand and make sure that no one thinks that you have abandoned it in any way. But in protecting your brand, you cannot become so heavy-handed and control-oriented, where you begin to dictate every aspect of the business. And as you start asserting more and more controls, you open yourself more and more up to vicarious liability claims, with individuals being able to not only sue a franchisee for a problem or issue with service or a product, but all of a sudden they think to themselves they can go after the deeper pocket in the franchisor, because they'll say that the franchisor ordered it, mandated it as a matter of policy, and this is their procedure, and the franchisee had no choice, and therefore the franchisor should bear the cost. So franchisors have to, fight against and resist the urge to control every aspect of a business. After all, one of the biggest things about franchises is that these guys are independent businesses. They're running their own businesses, and they are they have to shoulder and take the blame and responsibility for how they manage and run their businesses.
Awesome. Okay, so what is your favorite thing about working with franchises?
Well, I think my favorite thing about working with franchises and working in the area of franchising is its diversity, right? I mean, it's one of those situations where it's never a dull moment. I mean, virtually every industry is franchised. You have diversity across industry lines, different kinds of businesses, different kinds of concepts. Not everything, is about restaurants. I mean, everything from gym to home remodeling businesses to you name it, mold remediation, you name it. They're franchise companies that handle virtually every kind of service and product offering that you can think of. So there's all of that diversity in terms of different kinds of businesses and areas that you can, delve into and develop an expertise in. And then in addition to that diversity, you have from dealing with franchisors to master franchisees to area developers to individual franchise owners. You have diversity in terms of entrepreneurial experience and exposure, as well as the size of businesses and the business issues that you're confronted with in dealing with all these different kinds of business owners. And the other aspect of diversity, obviously, in terms of gender, race, and all the other lines are there also, because we have virtually everybody getting into franchising. It's the easiest way to get into owning a business. So we're doing all that we can to increase the diversity in the franchise area and franchise practices, trying to get more minorities and women to get into franchising. And as we're having some progress and success in those areas, we now are seeing more and more diversity and a richness there. So there's all kinds of issues, all kinds of exciting people, exciting topics. It never gets boring. It never gets old. There's always different stuff going on.
Sounds like a dream job. Never a dull moment. Okay, last question for you. So what is one thing you think every prospective franchisee should know before joining a franchise brand?
Okay, so I think that every franchisee should definitely know how much resources the franchisor have at its disposal, right? Because if a franchisor doesn't have resources, they can't support you and can't do all the things that they said they were going to do when they were selling you that business. So you want to make sure that you have a franchise system that's adequately capitalized, that's not leveraged to the hilt, that can actually provide you with the support, do the marketing, and do all the various things that they have represented that they would do. And you should really want to make sure that you delve into those the resources of the franchise system, because I can't tell you the number of times where you've had either franchisees complaining about lack of support, saying that the franchise system is not providing it with the tools necessary in order to be successful, and that the franchisor isn't doing what it should be doing in the areas of marketing and whatever. And then you have systems where you have franchisors who, because they're inadequately capitalized, begin to borrow funds from various places that they shouldn't, like taking from the marketing fund and taking from various places, and they get into trouble. And then those systems that sometimes might go into bankruptcy and need to be restructured, reorganized, or whatever, because they just don't have the resources and they're heavily in debt. So I think that becomes a very important issue from the area of franchising, because The individual franchisee is going to provide the muscle, the labor, and the will and the drive. A lot of that stuff they have to bring to the table in terms of the success of their business. But they do want to make sure that the franchisor can support them in the way that they have represented that they do.
Perfect. Well, that is all I have for you, Jason. Thank you so much again for sharing your insight.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.